In today's video, I'm going to be sharing how to work the corner to corner Suzette stitch. This is a super easy stitch consisting of single crochets and double crochets, and although the stitch itself is easy, it can be a little confusing on where to place your stitches. So I hope to help simplify that in this tutorial, as well as show you how you can easily change the square into a rectangle. This stitch is ideal for blankets, scarves, dish towels, you name it. It looks the same on both sides, meaning it's reversible. And although it is quite a dense fabric, it still feels super soft. But if you do want it to have a little bit more drape, then I recommend you just use a larger hook size than recommended on the label. For this demonstration though, I am sticking with my favorite 4mm hook with a worsted weight 4 yarn. If you'd like to learn more about the yarn featured in the video, you can find all of that information in the description box below. To get started, add a slip knot to your hook and chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like I mentioned earlier, to create a Suzette stitch, we're just doing 1 single crochet and 1 double crochet into the same stitch. So let's go ahead and do that in the very first chain next to the slip knot. Single crochet and double crochet, both in the same stitch. And that's row 1 completed. We formed a Suzette stitch and made a chain 3 space. Next, chain 3 and turn. Now this can be a little tricky to see at first, but we're going to be working our Suzette stitch into the single crochet from the previous row. The more you do this, the easier it is to see, but for now you can just focus on finding the second stitch to work into. So here's our chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Here's the top of our double crochet that we made. And here's the top of the single that we made. So you're working into the second stitch. So let's work our next Suzette stitch. 1 single and 1 double crochet. So you should have something that looks like this. You have a chain 3 space, your Suzette stitch, and a little chain 3 space on the other side. Now you don't have to do this, but I do recommend that you add a stitch marker in that chain 3 that you just made. And from now on, I'll also be adding a little stitch marker at the other side with the other chain 3. In this chain 3 space, we're going to add another Suzette stitch. This is how we increase the rows. So we're just going into there with a single and a double. Chain 3 and turn. And we're just going to follow the same sequence. We're looking for the single crochet. Here's our chain 3. Here's the double crochet that we made, and here's the single crochet we made. So in the second stitch, so we're doing a single crochet and a double into that previous single. And let's go ahead and add a stitch marker. And now we're just going to continue on. We're going over to our next Suzette stitch, looking for the single crochet. We know it's the second stitch. And add a single and a double into it. We're back to our chain 3 space. We're increasing, we're building our row. So we're working a single and a double into the chain 3 space. We're just going to continue this row after row. We're chaining 3, turning our work, working into the second stitch, which is a single crochet. Looks more like a circle compared to the double there. Single and double. In the next single Add your Suzette stitch. Here we are at another Suzette stitch, working into the single crochet with our single and our double. And to continue increasing, we're working another Suzette stitch into the chain 3 space. Chain 3 and turn. Looking for that second stitch. We're just continuing the sequence all the way across, looking for my single. And finally increasing into that last chain 3 space. I'm just going to continue this for a few more rows, and then I'll be back to show you how to decrease. It's a good idea to keep a count of your stitches, but sometimes it can be a little bit hard, and that's because they shift from row to row. So one row will be going this way, the next row will be going this way. Here I've done 8 rows. Just watch the angle of my crochet hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I've only done 8 rows for this demonstration, but just continue working until you reach the width of the project that you want to make. And then when you've gone as wide as you want your project to be, now it's time to decrease. And again, I would recommend that you use stitch markers for this. It just makes your life a lot easier, especially at first when you're getting used to the stitch. So as we were increasing by 1 with every row, now we're going to decrease by 1 for every row. I have 8 here, so I'm going to turn it into 7. To do that, we're going to start with a chain 2 instead of a 3 and turn. Now to get started, we're just going to work in the same way for this row. We're going to look for our very first single crochet. That's the second stitch. There's our first double. There's our single. We're going in with our typical Suzette stitch. And then we're going to work all the way across until we reach the very last Suzette stitch. Just wait for me for that last one. And we'll do that one together. Okay, we've reached the very last Suzette stitch, and this is where we're going to do our decrease. We're going to do 2 single crochets together, or in other words, a single crochet decrease. We're going to begin in the single crochet, pull the yarn through, and then within that chain space, you can either work into the chain or around it. It's completely up to you. I'm going to work around it. Go in, pull the yarn through, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops. And so now I should have 7 Suzette stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, let's do another row. Chain 2, turn. We're going to continue on with the same sequence. We're ignoring this area here where we did the 2 single crochets together, and we're going to work into that very first single of the first Suzette stitch that we see. Here's the double for it, here's the single for it. So essentially we're working into the 3rd stitch. 1, 2, 3. Create a Suzette stitch. Continue across, just like normal. Okay, and we're back to that very last Suzette stitch, and we're going to do the 2 single crochets together again to close off this row. So working into the single and into the chain space, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops to create a decrease. Let's do that together one more time. Chain 2, turn. We're skipping over that 2 together, finding the first Suzette stitch that we made, working into the single crochet. It's the 3rd stitch. 1, 2, 3. Create a Suzette stitch. That's a single and a double. And continue on across. We've come to the very last Suzette stitch. There's the double forward, there's the single. So into the single, into the chain space, yarn over, pull through all 3. You're just going to continue doing this, and I'll come back when we get to the last or the second to last row. So now we only have 2 left, so we're just doing 1 Suzette stitch, I don't know if you're finding these stitch markers annoying, but I really want you to be able to see where that chain space is. And now we have 1 more stitch left next to the chain space, so we're doing our 2 together. Okay, that's taken us down to 1. Chain 2 and turn. Go ahead and get rid of that. And now to close this off, we're going to do 1 more decrease. So we're going into that last Suzette stitch, the single, into the chain, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. And then what I like to do is just do a chain 1 and turn. And then just do a slip stitch into the top of that chain there, just to close it off. So now that you know how to increase and decrease, to make a rectangle, you're going to be using both of those at the same time. You're going to be increasing on one side and sort of decreasing on the other. You're keeping it at a standstill on the other side. So to work on a rectangle, you want to continue working your increase rows until you reach the width that you want your rectangle to be. I want it to be this wide, but now I want it to get longer. So what I recommend you do here is take a stitch marker and pop it into the side that you want to stay short. We want this to stay the same, so we're going to be doing a decrease on this side, and we're going to continue increasing on this side. Once you get the hang of it, it's going to be really simple, but adding a stitch marker on one side really helps. So we're on our increase side. We're going to do everything as normal. We're going to chain 3, turn, and now working into that very first single of that first Suzette stitch. There's the double, there's the single. So in the second stitch, create my first Suzette. And just continue across until we get to the very last Suzette stitch. And here we are at the very last stitch with our chain space. And we want to do a decrease here. So going into the single, pull the yarn through. Going into the chain space, pull the yarn through, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. And now because we're on the decrease side, chain 2. Just like we were doing for the decreasing. Turn your work. Look for your first Suzette stitch and the single crochet. It'll be the 3rd stitch, 1, 2, 3. And work your first Suzette. Go ahead and pop that stitch marker back in there so we can remember which side is which, and continue on to the other side. We've reached the last Suzette stitch before that chain space. We're just going to work like we were for the increase rows. We're working our last Suzette stitch into that single crochet and another one into the chain space. Okay, let's do that again. So we're on the increase side, so that's chain 3, turn, working into the very first single, create your stitch, continue all the way across, And now we're at the very last Suzette stitch. We're on the side with the stitch marker. We know this is our decreased side, so we're just doing 2 single crochets together. Chain 2 and turn. And now you're just going to continue doing this until you reach the length of the project that you want to make. So I'm just going to do a couple more rows here, and then I'll see you for the decreasing. So I'm on my decrease side. I just finished my final decrease over here. Now I've decided, okay, this is about as long as I want it to go. I want to complete my rectangle. So now we're just going to switch back to decreasing on both sides. So for decreasing, just chain 2, turn. So now, just like we've been doing, I'm going across to the very first single of the Suzette stitch. So that's the 3rd stitch over. 1, 2, 3. Working my way across in every single across. And then when I reach the very last Suzette stitch that I've made, now I'm going back to the decreasing. So I'm going to go into the single, pull up a loop, go into the chain space, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. Okay, so I've created a decrease on both sides. Back to chain 2 now, turn, find the single for that very first Suzette stitch. 1, 2, 3 is 3 stitches over. Create my Suzette stitch. Just going to continue this all the way down. I'm sure you know the drill by now if you watch the decrease row segment. I'll just complete this and then I'll come back when we have about 2 Suzette stitches left. So I only have 2 Suzette stitches left. So in the first one, go ahead and work it just like normal. Again, a decrease in the very last one. Chain 2 and turn. So we're at the very last Suzette stitch. Here's the double for it, there's the single for it. Remember, we're working into the 3rd stitch. 1, 2, 3. But we're doing a decrease, so we're just going in, pulling our yarn through, going into the chain space, pulling the yarn through, yarn over, pull through all 3. And that's the last row completed. I like to chain 1 and turn. And then I'm just going to do a slip stitch into the very last stitch there. So that's all there is to it. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it made sense. If you have any questions, be sure to let me know in the comments. If you'd like to see more C2C style videos, please let me know about that too. But otherwise, here's one I think that you'll enjoy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Perfect timing, little man. Perfect timing. Yes, you go.